Okay. So Mark here from Rock and Load. This evening we are joined by Chris and Cade all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. The guys front the Naked Gypsy Queens, and they've just dropped their debut EP, Georgiana, courtesy of Mascot record label. So gents, thanks for joining me here. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely awesome. Yeah. So listen, this is our first time obviously chatting to you guys. So tell us a little bit about the history of the band. And first of all, I believe you guys are from Franklin, Tennessee. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in Franklin?
It was pretty unique compared to most white American suburbia, I must say. But being from the South and being from the musical mecca of Nashville, Tennessee, especially in the southeastern area, is such a big deal.
Yeah. And
just seeing that grow up and blow up in the past 20 years is a big deal, especially with the big big music scene from traditional roots and all that to psychedelia and eventually to rock and roll. So
yeah. And you guys, did you meet in high school or did you know each other beforehand?
Yeah, high school.
Yeah, we met at high school.
And the band itself then formed in high school as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so like, what age were you guys? Tell me about high school. What age do you stay in high school to in the States?
We start around 13 to 14 and then graduate like 18. More 18. But Chris and I were 17 when we graduated. We had late birthdays.
Yeah. Ready to get out and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so like when you formed the band, what was the initial vision? Did you have an idea for what you were hoping to do?
Just play and just do it for a living, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we've always just wanted to play music. And if we could do it for, if we could do it for our lives, that's really what we wanted.
The original goal was to get signed before high school ended. But
yeah, optimistic.
Yeah, very much so.
Obviously, I suppose, as you said there, you touched on it yourself, growing up around Nashville, obviously music just has to be in your blood. It must have been something that really was a driving force to get out there and get involved in that scene.
I would, yes and no. I mean, Chris is the only native in Franklin. We all grew up like in different parts of the country. Like I, for example, was born in Illinois, but I was raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which, there's not a lot of music there besides just hip hop. So when I moved to Nashville, I didn't really know the music scene at all. I knew Nashville was known for its country music and stuff, but I really didn't have a huge goal in music up until I would say my freshman or sophomore year of high school.
Yeah. And what about your history with guitars then and stuff? Like where did your interest peak really from the music? Who got you involved or who inspired you to pick up the guitar in the first place?
Definitely more I guess you could say teeny bop level of expertise was a big deal, especially growing up in the early 2000s and early aughts and all that.
Yeah.
3 chords and the truth, big deal from pop punk and all that, and then it ended up moving into being able to do it to actually making something very mature and psychedelic, as we would say at the time. It was a big deal. Yeah. But then eventually we ended up fundamentally realizing like we don't want to be like any other band on the scene, and a lot of them were playing more traditional level psychedelia, more Beatles style, and we're really big Beatle fans and all that, but eventually we really got more into playing blues, more blues standards and all that, and we're really trying to step out of being more of a
just rock and roll band.
Yeah, like a guitar band to the T. Yeah, in a different form.
Yeah, your sound is quite a mature sound. As a friend of mine would describe you guys, you say you guys have old souls. You're sort of seem to be steeped in the vintage sort of sound. The likes of the Zeppelin, the Free, and old sort of stuff of real quality.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about it? Like, who sort of inspired your sound then for what you're playing currently?
I mean, there's just so I could do a whole day on like inspirations, but I mean, for the main one, at least for myself, I would say the biggest ones, at least when I started music, was like Kurt Cobain, and then it got into John Mayer, and then it would go to the blues stuff, which, you know, like Eric Clapton, Dwayne Allman, Robert Johnson, B.B. King, just all those guys. And then, you know, up and now to like jazz stuff, you know, which, you know, I know like, for example, like Chris and I, this past year, we've barely just kind of been paying attention to guitars. Yeah. We'd more just be listening to horns or something. Pretty much, you know, more in jazz style.
Yeah. And do you think then, as a EP that you've just basically put out now, a reflection of maybe where you were a while ago, or have you progressed on from then?
Yeah, that was definitely, we recorded that in October 2019. And at that point, we were heavily influenced by like the Black Crowes and the Stones and stuff. Yeah. And, but now, you know, I think, you know, that's behind us now.
Definitely matured in a different dimension, I might add.
Yeah. We're looking for new frontiers.
A couple of years, you know, obviously the pandemic has stolen a couple of years from all of us, but for you guys, obviously, like you say, recording that back in 2019, you've had to sit on it for a long time then before it was able to be released. So I'm sure musically you guys have progressed. And where do you see yourself sort of going in a new direction then, or for the next recording?
It's been done for the T. We have all the demos and the music written for it, but it will be coming out very shortly in the next time.
Is it a full album? A full album?
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah. And what was the process like for recording that album or the EP you've just put out, Georgiana? You guys went to Detroit, was it? Is that Detroit?
It was Royal Oaks, Michigan, which is what, Michigan? Like 5-10 minutes from Detroit.
Yeah.
And we just recorded that EP there in like a week. First couple of days were just full band tracks. Next couple of days were guitar overdubs and some bass overdubs, and then the last day I think was vocals. Yeah. So it was very, you know, just go in and record. Yeah, you tried like a live approach in the recording sessions.
Yeah, very raw, very straight up.
And had you guys recorded prior to that at all? Was that your first experience in a pro studio, say, or?
We recorded our independent,
our debut album.
Our debut album at this studio in Franklin called Darkhorse Sessions. We actually won that from a Battle of the Bands concert we won like when we were 17.
Yeah.
But that was, for me at least, for me and Bo. I'm not sure about Landon, but I know Chris was in a couple studio sessions, but for me that was my first time in a studio. And then in Detroit it was our first time, or my first time at least, with an actual producer and stuff.
How did you find that? Because I'm sure it must be a bit of a strange experience, quite a challenge for some people. Some people take to it like a duck to water, but it can be quite a different experience.
How do we find the producers?
Working in the studio and the discipline of maybe studio recording.
Oh, definitely game changing. That was definitely one of the biggest walking on water experiences. I'd say more of a, you got to really make yourself uncomfortable if you want to grow musically. And as a guitar player, especially, being on the spot and being hot is a big deal.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And what about the guys that you worked with? How did you feel that they made you guys work? Did they pull more from you guys than you would have maybe expected?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 3 out of the 4 songs, there was really no change. I know they loved the songs for how they were, but I know New York, they wanted to do a few
changes to the arrangement and all that.
But so like they made us work for it, and we would have never really even knew we could come up with something like that if they didn't push us to, you know, go outside our weight class.
Yeah. And is it hard to relinquish that sort of control over your own music?
Going to the studio, I for me, I was a little bit stubborn. I was like, I don't like the idea of people changing how we write songs, but it's all, it obviously depends on the producer and who you're working with. But, you know, if they have this idea in mind and, you know, they've been doing it longer than we've been alive, you know, I would like to think that they, you know, have some good insight and they know what sounds good, and what they hear in their heads can, you know, become really good for what our songs are. So
yeah.
I would definitely say it was a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. And you said it just took roughly about a week to complete the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like the 5 tracks, were they sort of written just prior to the recording itself, or were you sitting on those for a while?
Definitely the best out of 10.
Yeah, we I know for Devil we wrote that like a couple weeks, maybe even a month before
we got there.
Yeah, but some of like, and same with New York. I think New York was the last song we wrote before we went to the studio. But I know like Strawberry, I think, and Georgiana were the oldest songs that we wrote.
Okay, yeah. And the new stuff then, so you're sort of talking about the progression of the band, etc., and the sort of musical direction shifting a little bit. How do you think it sort of will sit against the previous recording?
It's a lot more, Chris and I, we drew a lot, we drew so much inspirations from many great albums, like from Pet Sounds to #1 Record to Revolver to, you know, just a whole bunch of stuff. And I would say we're much more, I can't think of the word. I would say we're much more picky on how we wrote this album. We really wanted to be 100% confident on literally every single part that we wrote.
Yeah.
And we you know, we really went into melodies and theory, but also making it actually listenable to the average listener, you know?
Yeah. You're focusing a lot more on, say, songwriting and stuff like that there.
I would say we focus more on songwriting for this next album. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you recorded that yet? Is it just all like laid out at the moment, sorry, for demo sort of purposes?
Definitely more, I guess you could say, pre-production, but at the end of the day, it's very up for grabs and where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And was this written during lockdown?
Yes. Prior to lockdown as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just started it beforehand. And how was your lockdown experience? How was things for you guys over there during the time?
How was it?
Oh, it was
Some days
dreadful. It was dreadfully ghastly.
Yeah, some days were good, some days weren't too good.
Yeah.
But
you guys affected much where you were? Like, were there big lockdowns in Nashville, etc.?
Not necessarily in comparison to like New York or Los Angeles. Like the South, really, it doesn't have as bad or as much rules, at least concerning, like, you know, compared to the like New York City and stuff. So we were able to go out and, you know, get food. We weren't, you know, locked in our houses and stuff.
Yeah, it was cool, but it really sucked though. There's no getting around it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what's it looking like now? Have things settled down?
Yeah, I think so.
The music scene's back where you are, etc. Live scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's still Mascot, obviously, but I mean, there's still shows. There's shows now, you know.
Yeah.
Full capacity. So.
Yeah, I see a lot of the US bands are sort of touring around the US again, which is good for you guys. We're having a lot of problems here in Europe with travel from the outside. You know, I think a lot of the American bands just aren't taking the risk at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of tours being postponed or put back to next year, unfortunately, you know, even now that when things have settled down. So it's frustrating, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what have you guys been doing recently then? Have you been out playing yourselves?
Yeah, I know in 21 we played a lot of shows from like July to October. That because, you know, that first half of 21 and all of 2020, you know, we were in lockdown. Then we took a little break for the holidays. But now, you know, we're we're starting to get a lot more shows for the 22 show and for the 22 year, and hopefully by the end of the year we can head to Europe and see how that looks.
And when are you hoping to get in to record the new stuff, new material?
We really like as soon as possible, but we're thinking probably in the next few months.
Yeah. I suppose you have to go through the cycle of the EP first of all, and make the most out of that there before you get back in and start recording again. So what's your end game, guys? Like, have you got a bucket list for yourselves? So you're still young. You're a lot of years ahead of you in this industry. So what would you like to do?
Just with livelihood.
Well, as far as, like, is there a bucket list of things that you'd really love to tick off, musician-wise?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. Pretty excited. Any
bands you want to tour with, for example?
Who would you say would be the biggest one you want to do with?
There's so many. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many. I would love to, honestly, not even, it doesn't, for me personally, I would love to open for like Kendrick or something.
Yeah, big time. Kendrick Lamar.
Okay. Or Kanye, get like different scenes for sure.
Yeah, different genre. Yeah.
Like kind of how the Chili Peppers are doing with A$AP Rocky.
We'd love to open up for the Chili Peppers big time.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, you guys, especially in the American scene, would have such a broad musical sort of mix, where in the UK, for example, they quite tend to be quite sort of focused on pairing bands together of similar genres, whereas you guys is talking about maybe mixing it up with people outside of your comfort zone. I'm assuming then musically you guys grew up listening to all types of music rather than just sort of being sort of boxed in with rock and blues, etc.
Yeah, especially because I grew up in Albuquerque, like I said, so all I listened to was either top 40 radio on the way to school, or hip hop from all my peers in elementary, middle school, which I still loved, those, because it's my childhood. And then when I moved here, it was definitely more rock and blues and stuff. So it's just a huge whirlpool of influences.
And so with the music scene around you guys where you are, because obviously you say Nashville's music city effectively, it's such a competitive area as well, obviously, because every musician sort of going into Nashville to try and make it. How do you guys sort of wade your way through the waters there then, with that sort of scene being so vibrant and so busy? Is there much competition then? Like, is it hard to get gigs, get opportunities?
I say we had a blessing and a curse, I think, because when we started, we were 15, 16. Yeah. So a lot of those Nashville venues wouldn't even let us play because we weren't 21 or 18. So we had to build our following in Franklin and Spring Hill. And as we, kept growing, we were able to get that Franklin fan base. And then finally, when we hit 18, we didn't have to worry about drawing a crowd in the Nashville venues. But I think if we started as a band at like 19 or 20 and try to play in Nashville, it would have been a lot harder. Just because, like I said, there are just so many musical acts out there.
Yeah. And I spoke to a guy, a Nashville resident, Tyler Bryant. One time I was talking with Tyler, and he was saying, for example, he couldn't even get arrested in Nashville because of the, it's just one of those scenes that's so hard to break into, really. How do American bands approach, because of the scale of the country, the size that you guys obviously have to travel around? How do you tackle that? Do you just work on state by state, or do you think bigger picture?
Kind of both, I would say. Our manager, when we first started as a band, he asked us what the big goal was, and we would put that big goal there, but he would have us do baby steps to get to that point. So I would say definitely both of those things.
And so how do you actually do it physically though? How do you put that in practice? Is it getting on the back of a tour with another musician and touring around the states, like state on state, or is it radio stations, for example? How do you get out there and get your brand or your band noticed? What's the key?
social media is a huge one.
Okay.
If we didn't, I mean, I really don't know how bands back then did it because, you know, social media was such a huge help for us when we first started.
Mm-hmm.
And not only us, but many other bands.
Yeah, I suppose with you guys being younger, you were probably pretty active on social media anyway, so it came second nature to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the guys who were playing in the 80s are struggling today, the Def Leppards and the guys like that there who don't know what Twitter is.
Yeah, but they don't need to worry about it though, because they get asses and seats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, what's on the cards for you immediately at the moment? Then, what have you got going on?
Well, we're working on more shows. I know we are opening up for Dirty Honey in April.
Yeah,
in Birmingham. As well as Blackstone Cherry in March. But yeah, really just working on playing. We're really trying to be out there as much as we can.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about gear, guys. What do you play? What do you actually use?
You can go first.
As far as gear goes,
yeah.
I have a 65 twin reissue from it's a 19 twin, so it's cool. It's got Jensen's in it, and it's really cool, spec'd out with a little modification here and there. But for this tour recently, I've been using Texas Tone Ranger, which is like an 800 kind of vibe. And I'm not really that big of an 800 kind of guy, but in terms of what we have a British amplifier, which is good, which I blend that with the two of them. But yeah, I've been using Mesa cabs recently. We started off when it was back in 20. We had a hand-wired series, Celestian greenbacks, but we have our own little custom cabinets that we're using right now.
Yeah,
but that's basically it. So.
And you guys have avoided digital then? You're keeping it real with the old tube amps?
Very, very much so. We're not a Kemper. We call ourselves Kemper killers because we don't, you know. And
pedal-wise, do you use many pedals?
We tend to keep it very minimalistic. I know, like when we first started, at least when Chris first started, you know, when we were 15, you know, the huge pedal boards, like the Worship stuff was very popping at the time. So at that point, we really wanted like spaceship pedal boards. But now, you know, all we really need for our sound is just some delays and some overdrive. And
less is more as you get older.
Yeah,
and wiser probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what about you, Cade? What do you play?
I play pretty much the same kind of setup, except I have in my cab I got some JBL D120s as well as my twin reverb, and then I have a Fender bass 67 Bassman that I'll plug into the cab, and then I'll mix it in with the twin reverb.
And are you guys Gibson guys? Did I say that in your videos, playing Gibsons?
Yeah, we're Gibson for sure. I know Chris has a 345, and then I have a Les Paul.
Yeah, and you ever play Strats or Fender at all? Have you just always gravitated towards Gibson?
We have a big Strat arsenal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good history with them.
Yeah. And what's your take on the likes of Gibson these days? With they're making a real charge. Yeah, it's
phenomenal.
Ever since. Go on ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, my apologies.
No, you're fine. Not time delay. I was going to say, just obviously they're signing so many major artists at the moment. You have like Slash doing the Gibson Records thing as well. So it sort of goes hand in hand very nicely, doesn't it? Like a guitar brand and a record label tying in together. What do you think? Would you feel comfortable with that, or is it something you'd rather see separate?
Having a record label and a guitar brand work together?
Yeah, and hand in hand.
Oh yeah, I mean, specifically with a band rather than a label. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And what about yourselves and Mascot? How did that deal come around? How did you decide on Mascot as a label partner?
Well, I think it was February 2020. We had a
really good deal.
Yeah, we had a showcase for a few labels, but ultimately we decided Mascot was the best fit, just because, you know, like Chris said, it was a great deal, but also we loved how they worked and we loved their work ethic, and, you know, the Ron, the president, really believed in us. He actually, you know, took us out and really wanted to see what we were about, and just didn't see us, you know, as a money making machine, but he actually saw us as people that can make, you know, good music that he loves.
So, guys, look, I'm going to wrap it up here because I know you guys are busy. Look, thanks for your time today. Great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And obviously, best of luck with the future. I'm delighted. Your EP was absolutely beautiful. It was a stunning recording. So fair play to you guys. You've done a great job there.
Thank you
Big
so
shout
much.
out to Rust Belt Studios, Marlon Allen Hirsch. If you're listening, we love you.
Yeah, done a great job.
Big deal for why we sound good. Good time.
Okay, guys. Well, look, best of luck for the future. We'll catch you on the other side, and we're really looking forward to the next recording.
Oh yeah, thank you, man.
Okay,
Thank you for having us.
Take care. Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.